I'd like to tie a fly for you that's called the UV worm. The UV worm uses a Gamakatsu split shot drop shot hook. It's a red one. You can use black, I guess, but I prefer red. This is a 1/0 hook. It's got a wide gap to it. And to start with, we're going to get a piece of paper, a little small, tiny piece of paper. And what we're going to do with this piece of paper is we're going to wrap it around the hook bend, where it is going to be clamped down by the vise. So we'll put the paper on there and clamp that down. The reason we do that is to protect the finish, the red finish of the hook. I learned that trick in a salmon fly tying book that I got a few weeks ago, and I thought that was a good idea, so figured we just incorporate that into it. This fly's doesn't have very many pieces to it, depending which version you tie. The two versions I'm going to tie for you tonight. The first one uses pink polypropylene yarn. You can use any color you want, but this one uses polypropylene yarn. And thread, I typically tie with UTC 140 for this fly. The pink one I have, I'm going to actually use UTC 70 because I don't have 140 in the pink. And that's it as far as what's the materials for this fly. The other fly, instead of using polypropylene yarn, we're going to use 30-pound test fly line backing, and it just looks really good. So we're going to start by tying the pink one. I'm going to get our thread and our bobbin ready to go. And we're just going to start our thread, and we're going to I like to start it at what I've learned to be known as the index point, which is the point which is one hook eye from the back of the hook eye. So it ends up being right at this area here, and so that's where we'll start the thread. And we're going to bring the thread all the way back down to the back of the bend, probably about this point right here, somewhere into here, and then we'll start with the yarn. Anyway, as we're flying back, to give you a little background information on this fly. This fly was created by a gentleman by the name of Mickey Anderson. Now, Mickey Anderson works for Fishtech in Utah. Fishtech is a fly fishing shop in Salt Lake City, and in Utah, among fly fishermen, Mickey Anderson is fairly well known. I just didn't know he actually tied this fly, and so when I found out he tied it, I actually called Fishtech and asked him about this fly, and asked him what he used to tie it, and he told me you can use just about anything. The way that he ties it is with either polypropylene yarn or fly line backing, but he says that you can actually tie it with wire, or you can even tie it with wool crochet thread, yarn. And I thought that was interesting. He ties it in 3 different colors typically. The first one is pink, the second one is orange, and the other one is cream. And so anyway, it's pretty much a simple tie, not very many materials, and it's as far as what materials you can use your imagination. So now we got our yarn back to the back of the hook. We're gonna start tying some polypropylene. When I tie this for this fly in, I like to make sure that I leave enough there to get for the front of the yarn, tip of the yarn, to get to the index point. And so it's going to be right about there, and I'm just going to grab my thread and just wrap around. And this is kind of hard to, polypropylene is kind of hard to work with like this at the moment. So what I do is I make sure that it's tight, and put a couple twists in it, a couple wraps of thread, and just go to the front of the hook to the index point real quick, and then I'll go back over it with my thread. And it doesn't have to be pretty, just pretty, it just has to be in there. And we're gonna make sure we get it down far enough, and we did, and we're gonna come back to the index point of the fly. And then we're gonna put a half hitch into the thread and put the bobbin onto the bobbin cradle. And this is what's unique about this this fly. If you don't, well, I'm gonna show you. What we're gonna do is we're gonna twist our thread, twist our yarn, polypropylene yarn, so it's rope-like. And it's important that you twist it, because if you don't twist it, you're not gonna get the segmentation you want, and then it just looks like a well, just looks like a mess. It doesn't really look like anything. Now we're just going to take our vise, and I've got a rotary vise, so I'm going to use the rotary feature and bring this poly yarn all the way, wrap it all the way around the hook, all the way up to the index point. When you run out of twisted yarn, you just go back to the end and twist some more. Wrap it back around again. Run out. And take some more off of there. And twist some more. You got to keep a good amount of pressure on the yarn to keep it lined up, straight, and twisted. It's not quite twisted enough. Okay, and now see, when you twist the yarn, you get good segmentation. When you don't twist the poly yarn, you don't get any segmentation at all. It just looks like I said, it just looks like a mess. So now that we're at the index point, we're going to take our thread and wrap it, tie off the yarn. I use about 3 wraps to tie it off, and then we'll cut the yarn. Be careful not to cut your thread, and then we're gonna tie it down the rest of the way, and just build a small head for the fly, and then we'll whip finish. Okay, and now we take our thread again, and about 30% of the way back from the hook eye, we'll restart our thread. And what we're doing is we're going to put a hot spot into the fly, and we'll use some cinnamon ice dough, which looks like a giveaway. So what we got here is some hairline, UV ice dub cinnamon, and we're just gonna wrap that around, twist that around the thread just a little bit. We don't need very much. We don't need to. Just need to put a hot spot into it. So you stretch it out a little bit and twist it around the thread, and then we're going to wrap it around. And you want it to be a pretty good hot spot. That's not quite enough thread, so I'm going to put some more ice dub on there. And then with this fly, you can use pretty much any ice dub you want. You just want the UV stuff, because that's how you get the hot spot, is through the UV. And then you're gonna wrap some more of that around there until you get about like that. Looks like we got a little chunk there we need to cut out though. And then we whip finish again. we'll cut our thread and put a little bit of Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails on the head. And that's that. I'll let that dry and it'll be ready to go. That's the polypropylene UV worm. I think it's a really neat looking fly and catches fish, and so there she is. The next worm is going to be the one that's made with fly line backing. So we'll get our hook again, and we can use the same piece of paper that we used for the other fly, and we're just going to put the hook into the paper and put the hook into the vise. I'm not sure what the story is here. There it goes. Now for this fly, we're going to use fluorescent orange thread. And here's about the fly line backing I've got is fluorescent orange. So that's why we're using fluorescent orange thread. Okay, so for this fly we're going to use fluorescent orange thread, and this is, like I said, UTC 140, which is what I prefer to use for this fly. It gives you a little more bulk, and it doesn't take quite so long to wrap some of those things that you need. And so we're just going to start the thread at the index point, and just work your way down to the end of the fly. You don't really need a flat base. You don't really need a, just don't want too big a hump in it. And again, we'll go all the way down to the past the bend, and right about there. And then we'll grab our fly line backing, and again I like to leave enough there that it goes all the way to the index point, which looks like I've got enough there, and we're going to start wrapping it. Again, just a few wraps to secure it, and you can go back over it. Now, so you make sure that backing stays in place. All the way up to the index point, and then we'll again half hitch it and put it on a bobbin cradle. And I'm going to use the rotary feature once again to wrap this around. And this, using fly line backing, if you notice on the polypropylene worm, UV worm, the segmentation in the body was thick. This makes a more narrow body with fly line backing, and the segmentation isn't quite as dominant, or prominent, isn't quite as noticeable. So I'll just keep going, wrapping it. Just right up against each other. Looks like I'm a little bit off there. A little rough there too. And just keep wrapping it around till you get to that index point. and then we'll tie it off. Two, three, and cut off the backing. Make sure you don't cut your thread, and then we'll create a head for this fly. And whip finish. Cut your thread and restart your thread again about 20-30% point of the fly, and then you can use like I said, you can use any type of UV dub. I prefer the cinnamon just because I think it looks better, and I probably got a little bit too much dubbing there. And just twist it on the fly, on the line, on this thread. And bring it up and wrap the hot spot onto the fly, and then whip finish again. And after that, cut the thread, head cement, and there it is. The fly line backing UV worm. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and if you want to view other tutorials, please visit www.fishbaitsflybox.com. Have a nice night. Thank you.